All right, everybody, I'm Shanta Williams. I am the Deputy Division Director of Board Support and Agency Administered Programs for the Workforce Development Division. That is a very long title. I still wonder why we came up with that, but nevertheless, I am very excited to moderate a discussion around innovative services provided by nonprofit partnerships. So these are the folks that are on the ground. They are hearing the stories. They are providing services that directly impact the person in front of them, while knowing that a person is depending on them with hopes of a fresh start, a second chance. So I'll turn it over to my crew. They're great. For introductions. Go right ahead, Rachel. Nope, go right ahead.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Rachel Hanson. I am the Chief Mission Officer of the Lone Star Justice Alliance. We did just casually put some flyers on your table if you're curious. And we'll go into a little bit more into what we do a little bit later. Right?
Okay. Yep.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Kelly. I'm the CEO of the Prison Entrepreneurship Program. We typically think of that, or I think of that anyway, as the Chief Empowerment Officer. We use the vehicle of entrepreneurship to foster transformation in the inmate population, to give them a vision of what a new life would look like, and we couple that with the character training and the community that will help that happen.
Hi, everybody. I am Prentice Goods, Program Director of the Houston Launchpad, and I'm here to speak about training, employment opportunities through a construction trade school that we got.
All right. Welcome, everybody. So I'll keep it with you, Prentice. I'll go ahead and get started. Tell us some of your existing partnerships to help meet your organization's mission.
Well, we have a partnership with the City of Houston, where we partner with them. We do the classroom training and some on-the-job learning, and they come in and then hire the person once they complete the on-the-job learning. So it's a partnership where they do 3 days a week classroom training at our facility, and the city comes in and they let them do 2 days training with the City of Houston. We think it's a great program. It gives our participants a chance to not only get a job, but to get a job with benefits and retirement. The City of Houston do have a good benefit and retirement program. And so that's kind of a selling point that we offer to the participants that come through our program, is that you not only get a job, you get a job with a career, and also offer, great benefits, because in this day and time, a lot of jobs, they pay pretty good, but they don't have a benefit package, nor the health and insurance. So that's a real good opportunity for a second chance person to partake on once they complete our program. Also, we partner with AGC, which is Association of General Contractors in the Houston and state of Texas area. It's a group of contractors that do highway construction, and they take a very vested interest in our program. They actually come speak to our students during the classroom training. They tell them about their companies and the benefits that they offer and the opportunities that they have at the time. And they have hired a lot of people through our program. We're very proud of our partnerships that we've made in the Houston area. We got companies that have also spent money on training equipment. They've serviced some of our equipment to make sure that we have the necessary, machinery and tools to make sure these people get trained properly. So we're very proud about the partnerships we have over the years.
Brian, you want to tell us?
Prison Entrepreneurship Program has a litany of partners that we work with, and probably none any bigger than Texas Department of Criminal Justice and MTC. We operate on 2 units inside of Texas, one just north of Houston at the Bell unit, one just south of Dallas at the Estes unit, and we have a tremendous partnership with the agency and MTC who make that room, that space available for us. We also partner with Baylor University. Every one of our graduates of our program receives a certificate of entrepreneurship from the Hanson School of Business at Baylor. There are several other institutions of higher learning that are super involved. The Wolf Center in Houston, SMU, Dallas Baptist, A&M, and UT have all sent us a litany of graduate students who help impact our participants of our program, help consult them, advise them around their business plans. We partner with On the Road Lending, who helps our men get in a reasonable automobile post-release because transportation is such an issue for those who are coming out of the incarceration experience. So many institutions of faith and of education that I could go on and on all day. And so we are trying to pull people in to address this issue because this is a huge problem. It's a community problem. It's going to take a community solution.
Awesome. I don't know how to follow that with all the partners, guys. So for Lone Star Justice Alliance, we have kind of two programs that are listed under our Just Careers program. Just Careers is available statewide. It's training for employers specifically on how to work with people with criminal backgrounds. It's training from frontline supervisors all the way up to CEOs into HR divisions. There's also one-on-one coaching available. So if you've got folks who you want to hire someone with a criminal background and you need one-on-one coaching, we're there to do that. Underneath the umbrella of our Just Careers program is Connect You to Jobs, which is in partnership with the Texas Department of Transportation and the Civil Rights Division. Hey, Kim, you want to give a shout out? Okay, this is Kim. He works in the Civil Rights Division of TxDOT. It's also in partnership with Workforce Solutions of Greater Dallas and Dallas College, and we work in an earn and learn model specifically for 18 through 27-year-olds who have a criminal background. This is a specific subset that we look at. They have additional needs and additional barriers to overcome. And we have a litany of other community partners that we work with in Dallas as well. We also do 3 days a week in the classroom and 2 days a week with the employer. Glad to see that's a trend, guys. And we know what we're doing. So they are paid to be in the classroom and paid to be at the work site. We partner with a number of employers in Dallas in the construction field, including Weber and Pegasus Links, LBJ, and a number of others who were there. And so the employers hire our folks. They are paid to be in the classroom, and at the end of the training program, they enter full-time jobs with those employers, surrounded by community support that Lone Star Justice Alliance helps provide and bring to the table with full-time jobs with benefits as well.
Good deal. Sounds like each of you are working with partners or your own services, your wraparound services, are preparing people to go straight into employment. So with that, I want to ask, can each of you share a success story of how employers have benefited from hiring individuals you serve through your organization?
So the person I'm going to talk about is a young man named Jeremiah, who was in our very first pilot, and when I say pilot cohort, I mean pilot cohort. We were trying things out, and he was super flexible with us. And he was young when he came to us. He did not have a GED or high school diploma. He was on probation. He had a baby on the way. Was really not sure where to start. He was just like, it's just in construction. And we had one of our very first employers, and I'm going to give them a huge shout out here, Weber Construction, who took a chance with us and took a chance on this program and took a chance with Jeremiah. In the 10 weeks of our program, he completed his GED. He completed probation. He was hired full-time by Weber. He's been promoted 2 times since being at Weber, so they now have a full lifelong career with him. And now he serves as a mentor to our new participants who come in, so they have a built-in person already in their employer or in their field to work with the people coming out of our program. He's got the lived experience of both being their employee and not being their employee, and he gets to show people the way. He gets to guide them when they come in, and Weber has come back to the table every single time with us to provide more people into the workforce.
I love that peer-to-peer component. So let me back up and say, we use the vehicle of entrepreneurship, and we're focused on that with our men on the inside of the prison. And let me just say that they can see themselves as small business owners, as an incarcerated individual trying to think about what their future is going to look like. They may not see themselves going to work in corporate America because of all the rigid policies that are going to challenge their deep dive on that, but they can see themselves as a small business owner. So when I raise that flag of entrepreneurship, they come running. Now, in our 18-year history, we've had 3,000 graduates to our program, about 5,000 people who have went through some portion of our program. Of those, about 20% will eventually one day. I recognize that 80% of our guys, that 100% of the guys are going to have to get a job as soon as they get out, get on their feet, build the necessary financial, social, mental, emotional capital to be able to launch a business. So they are all going to be intrapreneurs when they first get out. And I think what our employers have found is our training in entrepreneurship, in business basics, in wraparound communication and self-knowledge and self-understanding and communication really helps the guys get out and shine. We're averaging first job in about 22 days. In Q1, our starting wage averaged a little over $16 an hour. We do a lot of tracking on what that looks like down the road. At the 3-year mark, when across the country more than 50% are going back into prison, our guys are making north of $50,000 a year, and that was pre-COVID. It's higher now. 42% own their own home at the 3-year mark because of their increased earning potential. And so I want to frame that up. Almost half of our guys own their own home at the 3-year mark, when across the country, half are going back to prison. And so I think it's a tremendous way, entrepreneurship is a tremendous way to empower, educate, and prepare a wave of potential employees. You asked for some specifics. We've got a guy in Dallas who got out about 8 years ago. He went to work as a foreman for a construction company, as a laborer. He quickly moved to foreman, then general foreman, then assistant superintendent, and he's now a superintendent. He's married, he's got kids, he's got a brick home in Dallas.
Does he want to hire some of our guys?
Yeah, he has hired some of the PDP guys. There's another guy with Merrick Brothers down in Houston, almost the exact same scenario. He got out and he is now a project manager for him. There is a young man who called me about 3 weeks ago. He sent me a message first. Can we talk on the phone? I'm like, sure. Usually that's a bad message. Like, I've got to do some problem solving for somebody. And he called me up. He said, I just want you to know, you helped get me a job with an oil and gas company out in West Texas. I have not yet been out 2 years, and I have moved up to the point where I am now training the health and safety folks in the oil field, and I'm making $150 a year. I just want that to sit out there for a little bit. And I went, dude, that is fantastic. But I've also tracked him on social media, and he's living abundant life. He shows himself working out all the time. He shows himself with family. He's got that wraparound, abundant life thing going on. And one other quick story. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take so long. We had a young man that went through our program and got out about 10 years ago, and he too went to the oil fields because he had never had a job prior to prison. He had only sold drugs. And he went to work as a laborer, thinking, I need to earn as much as I can. His boss loved him because of his work ethic, because his appreciation for a job of that caliber. And one day they were on a truck out servicing an oil well, and the truck broke down. So he called the shop and said, hey, you need to come fix this truck. And the shop said, we are bogged down. It's going to be at least a week before we can even get to it. He said, I can't go without work that long. So he got on YouTube and he figured out how to fix the truck himself. And his boss recognized his mechanical aptitude. And he said, what if I got you some training for that? And he said, please, I'm all about education. And so they got him some training. They moved him into the shop. He became a mechanic. He rose to shop foreman. And then the entrepreneur came out of him. He started recognizing gaps in the service industry in West Texas. So he launched his own business. And first year did $1.9 million, 300 net. Last year, we put him on stage in 2019. He actually won a $100,000 prize and increased his fleet, 2 more trucks. Last year he did 3.9. He has hired a bunch of our PDP graduates. He's also become an investor in a business of another PDP graduate. So the ball continues to roll.
And yes, we are talking about reentry, second chance folks. $1 million. Yes.
And we do too, we ourselves, we have a good relationship with our employees, which they've hired a lot of people that came through our program and has promoted them within. So we have had added value to our circle of partners that work with us with our graduates. We have an 8-week course, and we have a graduation every 8 weeks. And we have employers that show up, and they kind of have different sections at the graduation, and they compete for our graduates. You know, we may have 5 different companies there every graduation, and we'll have companies that'll compete to hire them. So once our graduates, once they get their certificate, they go straight to an interview. You know, and a lot of them are hired as soon as they get their certificate on graduation day. So we got, because there's such a shortage in work, some of our trades in Houston is such a shortage in laborers and skilled workers that, you know, they look for us as a recruiting tool, you know, to help them out. One thing that they like about our graduates is that they actually take this 8-week course non-paid. So it shows that they have a vested interest in that particular field. So the employers say, well, look, if you got people that's willing to go sit in your class for 8 weeks, non-paid, that's the person that we want to interview and possibly hire. So they do, again, they always emailing me and calling me, hey, when your next graduation, when your next graduation? And I have to send out a group email to them to let them know. And they all show up, and like I say, they got the different areas doing throughout the auditorium. And person graduate, they go to this company, then they go to the next company, and you can just see the smile on their face, you know, to know that the 8 weeks is paid off that quick. You know, so that's what it's all about. It's just, you know, seeing a person that came through that was, you know, hopeless, or, you know, not knowing what they're going to do to take care of, like the lady said, their family. And after 8 weeks, have an opportunity to, you know, make an honest living and, you know, pick up the pieces and just continue to go on with their life. So that's one thing that I always make sure, and the employees, like I say, they are always trying to tell me ahead of time what their needs are. You know, hey, what's your next class? I say, well, we got a carpenter class coming up. And they say, well, great, we got a project starting up and we can use how many people, you know? And I say, well, you know, I give them the number and stuff. And they'll say, well, hey, we may want to interview a certain amount of them. You know, cement finishing, you know, when that class graduates, by the highway construction, we got companies that need cement finishers. You know, drywall, we got a drywall class. You know, it's a lot of construction going up. I don't know, you know, Houston is kind of hit by bad weather, floods from time to time. So you got a lot of houses and buildings that get water damage and need a lot of drywall repaired. You know, so it's an ongoing thing for the needs for skilled and labor workforce in the Houston area. So the employers make sure that they keep in touch with us so they can recruit, you know, and I have to tell them, hey, they have to finish the 8-week course, because they try to get them to, you know, come prior to them graduating. I said, well, we got a mandate with the state of Texas that they have to do this 8 weeks, and because we got to, you know, turn this data in. So we have to kind of scale them back sometime to make sure that we do our part before we hand them off to the employer. But love our relationship with them. I love it.
Thank you.
Did you guys hear the theme of benefit to employers between the 3 of us? Did you guys hear what every single one of us said? Internal promotion. That is one of the biggest benefits. Every single one of us have a story of internal promotion, including someone who was like 19, right? One of ours is 19. That's insane to promote a 19-year-old, right? I mean, it is, but he's amazing, right? And so one of the, you know, we'll ask, like, what's the benefit to the employers? And it's long-term, it's longevity, it's retention, right? That's what we're all here for. None of us are up here for a one-time job. We're all up here because we want our people to be working with you long-term, and that's what they want to. So retention, I think, would be the biggest thing to keep in mind.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, and another thing, we try and let our participants know that we are looking for them a permanent job. We try not to deal with temp companies and things of that nature. You know, we want them to be able to really move on once they come through our program. We're not trying to sell dreams, we're just trying to give hope.
Well said, Prentice. Well said. Okay, so we're talking about how employers have benefited, and you talked about success stories, which is great. But we know that they have to work very hard to get there, right? So can you tell us some of the innovative services you and your partnerships offer to help maintain employment and stability? Rachel, you want to go?
Okay. So we offer a number of different kind of innovative solutions, and so I'm going to just talk for a little bit. The first thing that I really want to talk about is the fact that we provide training to employers as well. I've been in the workforce world for a long time, over a decade, and I think historically what we've seen is that the ask has always been on the employee to change, on the employee to be the one who's making all of the progress and all of the work, while employers continue to kind of just work with them. And I think that really we've been missing the ball on a lot of this, and that employers need and want help too. We can't just say, it's not as easy as just go hire people with criminal backgrounds. It's just not that simple. And that's one of the innovative things that we've identified and realized is, hey, you know, our participants need case management and coaching, but I think maybe our employers do too. And so we provide training to our employers. We talk about what trauma does to your brain, right? When we talk about people who've been incarcerated, when we talk about people who've grown up in poverty, we're talking about actually their brain chemistry changes. The way they operate in the world changes. And until you understand that, right, you may be missing communication. As simple as giving instructions to someone, they may hear one thing when you said another, or vice versa. And so what we do is we help provide training to our employers about communication and management, how you help work with people, how you help keep them coming back, how you help them feel like they have a sense of belonging. The sense of belonging at an employer is one of the things that leads to retention. And it's one of the things that, I'm going to say this broad speaking, we have not done a good job as employers, and I say this as an employer myself, of fostering a sense of belonging within our own place for the people that we bring in. So we provide trainings for employers to learn how to do that, to work with them, and also to give employers someone to call when of that 20% someone doesn't show up. It's not an easy road, right? It's not an easy road working and moving into employment when you have not been in the work world for your whole life maybe, or you're 25 and no one has ever showed you what it meant to have a 9-to-5 job or working 40 or 50 hours a week on a contract. The other thing that we do is we say, hey employers, when someone doesn't show up, you call us. And we're here to help you, we're here to help coach you, and we're here to help find that person, and we're gonna coach them, and we're gonna get you guys connected again. Our job is to be that conduit between the two, because it's just not as easy as fill out some paperwork, hire, and now everything is beautiful and rosy. So that's one of the innovative things that we do. Another innovative thing that we do in our program is we provide weekly community engagement activities for all of our young adults. We call them emerging adults, which is that 18 through 27 range. You know, your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25, and yet we expect people at 18 or 19 to make the same choices that a 40-year-old would, and they just don't. None of us did. If you look back, harken your brains all the way back to when you were 18 or 19, your sense of consequences, not there. Not the same as it is when we're adults. And so one of the things that we do is we help to foster a sense of community within our program by providing weekly community engagement. We bring in speakers from, so we're in Dallas, so we've had people from the Mavericks come in, we've had people from the Cowboys come in, we've had entrepreneurs, and I'm going to get your card and you're going to come talk to them. Both of you guys are. And what we really do is we also try to foster a sense of belonging in their community, so they feel more at ease when they go to their employers. They feel more connected to the rest of the people who are in their group. We also do things like voting rights and engagement and know your rights training. So those are just a few of the things that we do.
That's awesome. Before we go to Brian, I wanted to touch on training employers.
Yes.
Because some employers, they just really don't know what to do.
Sure.
I mean, they want to open their doors to second chance individuals, but they don't have the skills to have certain discussions that they may need that's different than a person that's not coming out of prison. So can you talk a little bit more about that piece?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk about training all day. So we provide a whole host of trainings, and one of the things that we do is we customize our training program to each individual employer, because just like all people are not created equal and have the same needs, all employers are not the same, and not every single employer is the same need. A construction employer is going to have very, very different training needs than someone in the tech industry, right? And we're talking about two completely different sets, supervision looks different, the way the job is structured looks different. And so we will work with our employers, we customize our training to meet the needs of the people who are working there. So we'll customize training for the direct supervisors, right? And we're gonna talk with frontline supervisors, the people who are actually supervising our folks, about management and about communication, I also talk about trauma-informed care. We're gonna talk about trust-based relationships, positive interventions and supports. So these are all fancy theories, right? But what they really come down to is how we talk to people matters, how we communicate instructions matters, how we provide critique and feedback, all of that matters, right? And we've got folks who may not even know that they learn. Do you guys know that we all learn differently, right? Some of us are auditory learners, some of us are visual learners. I am neither of those things. I'm a hands-on learner. I can do with visual learning, but I need to do it myself. That's how I learn how to do things. Part of what we do is we help train employers on how to identify that for their employees. How to look at that and say, oh, you know what, they're not getting that. I bet that we didn't provide instructions exactly the way they need to hear it. And then we also coach the participants about how to advocate for how they learn, how to advocate for what they need. And so that's just some of it. And then we're gonna talk about the alignment, right? Training, so lovely employers, we love you so much. Everyone's got to be aligned on this. If you've got frontline supervisors who are on board but HR isn't, it's not going to work. If you've got HR who's on board but frontline supervisors aren't, it's not going to work. If you've got leadership on board but nobody else, it's not going to work. It's got to be a full, all the way through the company, and we provide training at each level because every level needs to hear something different. Every level needs to understand what the impact is. I'm going to talk about numbers, and I'm going to talk about retention with your leadership, and I'm going to talk about processes with HR and how to navigate TWC, right? That's what we're going to do, and that's what we're going to customize for you. And I think that what it really boils down to is that very basic of this is the experience of the person who's walked in the door that might be fundamentally different than anything I have ever experienced in my life. Which means I may have, as the supervisor, I may have to change the way I talk, the way I engage, and understand where this person is coming from. And I'm just going to get on a teensy-tiny soapbox here for just a quick second about looking at crime differently. I think that it's really easy to say that we're going to hire people who just have possession charges or just have misdemeanor theft or things like that. But I want you to really think about, and this is something we talk about in our training, that people who have committed violent crimes are no different than the people who have a possession charge. And the context in which those crimes are committed matters, right? And in Texas, I talk about this a lot because I think that you'll hear this a lot. We're happy to hire anyone without a violent felony, right? That's the line. I disagree with that, fundamentally disagree with that, because people who have committed violent crimes, let's talk about, does anyone know what the law of parties is in Texas?
The hand of one is the hand of all.
Yep. If one person in a group, let's say the three of us decide to go rob a 7-Eleven, I decide to shoot the cashier. Guess every single one of us are being charged with murder. That's how Texas works. That's the law of parties. So when we talk about excluding people for violent crimes, you're talking about the fact that they're going to pay the price for my crime, right? That's what happens. And let's talk about why I did that in the first place. Context matters. And reading criminal backgrounds matters. Our DPS system, what looks like when you pull your criminal background for somebody, you're going to see the initial thing that they were arrested for, what they were trying to get to stick, a charge they were trying to get to stick, not what the evidence provided actually stuck. And no one teaches employers how to read criminal backgrounds. I wasn't taught that. I had to learn that through case management. I had to learn that by working with people directly. And that's another thing that we cover in our training, is how to read backgrounds and how to understand what it actually means when you get all the way down to it. What that person actually served time for, what they were actually charged with, what they could actually get to stick.
Sorry, it's probably silly, but the way that you just described, you do the crime and then all of three of you are together. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, for example, Brent is sitting in a car and then he will have a felony for the rest.
Did he drive me to the crime? Then, yep.
What if he was in the back seat? I'm just asking.
Yep. They can absolutely try to charge the person in the back seat. That is the law. It should be abolished. Let's talk about that later.
Okay.
But it's a real thing, and it's part of how our system ends up where we are, and then we put people in boxes after that.
But he would have a background.
He would have a background.
And he would have.
Absolutely.
He would be in this situation with
Absolutely.
second chances. Okay.
Absolutely.
Wow. I'm sorry. I could talk to Rachel. I could talk to her all day long. I'm sorry. Brian, Prentice, do y'all want to join us in this conversation? Brian, go ahead.
I just want to thank God because I've been in the backseat a few times.
One decision. I think Commissioner Alvarez, one decision.
I'm from the inner city, so, some of my friends, a lot of them not here today, and that's just how it was growing up. They had a tendency for being criminals from day one, but back to the employers. One thing that I tried to get with our employees or community partners was to go over diversification and diversity type classes and sensitivity type classes with a lot of our employees, because in the construction trade, it's changed since when I came up. My dad was a construction worker, and when I was in high school, a lot of the construction workers looked like me. Today they don't, and that's just being honest about it. So it's kind of hard because a lot of my participants are, either African Americans or women. And so I have to, go out and talk to the employees and let them know that, I have the school, we graduate people in these areas, and they're going to be looking for work once they, graduate. So I had to also get with them, and we came up with doing some diversity classes and some, sensitivity classes to make it to where when these people got on that job, the people that's already working there was willing to work with them and accept them as a co-worker. That way they can work and build a relationship and provide quality work as a team. But that was the thing that I knew was going to be a barrier that I had to address ahead of time, a language barrier. A lot of these crews speak only Spanish. So that was another thing, if y'all do hire this particular person, how will they be able to translate, converse with the people that's already at these jobs. So it's been a lot of preparation. It's been a lot of talks ahead of time. It's been a lot of meetings, to make sure that these companies, once they hire these people, they can accommodate them to make sure they get trained properly. Because this is a dangerous job, and you have to be trained on safety properly, and things like that. So it's been a win-win for both of us, but it was because we had these conversations ahead of time, and it was dealing with the reality that most of your construction trades are filled with people that speak Spanish more than English. So that was something that they was willing to work with us with, and that was the reason why we continue to be successful, because we try to deal with real issues in real time and not wait until a person's on a job and they don't understand what the supervisor is saying, or they don't understand what the co-worker is saying. So we got to hit all that to make this, very productive once we handed this person off to that employer.
That's good.
Back to the question of what are we doing to innovate, and what are we doing differently, and I think just addressing this issue through entrepreneurship lens is one way, but one of the things I think is super important for us, especially with this population of people who have been through the incarceration experience, is dealing with the character issue. And I always tell somebody, we've got an entrepreneurship program inside that about 80% of what we do is dealing with character. We have got to show our participants that you need to be trustworthy. An employer needs to know that you're going to show up to work, that you're going to stay your whole shift, that you're going to represent them well, that you're going to treat their customers well, that you are not going to steal from them. They need to know that they can count on you. And so we put them through the crucible on the inside of our participants either have or are working on a GED, but we operate our program on the inside at the college level, supplemented by Harvard graduate school case studies. We are putting them in the fire and testing the character that we have instilled to make sure that that's going to come out the other side shining and that employers can count on them. Our case management team are all graduates of our program. I've got a staff of about 30, and 75% of which are ex-felons. They are out, they are successful, they know what our returning citizens are going through, they know the feelings and the fears that they're encountering, they know what hurdles they need to jump, and so they walk with them. We work with the employers as well, and I want to give you a great example. That oil and gas company, a guy came to me several years ago, and he said, Brian, I'm having problems hiring guys to go to work out in West Texas, and one of the biggest problems is the work's too hard. They don't want to live in man camps, and they don't want to eat in cafeterias. I bet your guys don't have a problem with that. I'm like, you're right, they won't have a problem with that. What we ran into is our guys immediately got a job out of prison making $75 a year, working their tails off for 2 weeks, and then having a week off with a pocket full of money. So what we had to do is put some wraparound support on that and include the employer to make sure these men had a mentor from their workplace, but there was also a peer group so they could continue to be iron sharpening iron. They could have that community around them that keeps them on path so they know what their longer term why is, and they can get over the humps that would have typically tripped them up. We work with a lot of our employers around that, about peer-driven groups on the inside, mentorship, and also providing that advocacy through our program. If they run into some sort of problem, they can call me and we will intervene. And so I think that partnership with our employers is super important.
Mentorship at employers is everything. We also do mentorship as well. And I thank you for bringing that up, because I think it is something too that is so critical when we're talking about success. Is you can have a supervisor on site and a mentor who is different. A mentor who walks the same walk as you every single day, who can help teach you and coach you about what's going on. So thank you for bringing that up, because it's absolutely critical.
Yeah, it sounds like accountability and structure, definitely a critical piece of success. Also creating environments for success. I think those two items is very important. Also, I know earlier we've been talking about the soft skills and how important they are. They're important for people without backgrounds. So I know how much more important it could be. The learning life and literacy skills is what I call it. The learning is critical thinking. Can you communicate? Like Prentice was saying, you got to be able to have a conversation. You got to show your employer that you're able to learn. And then the life skills, being flexible, taking initiative, having eye contact. All of that is very important. And of course, literacy. Thank y'all so much for those responses. I love to hear about your services to have stability in the workplace for second chance individuals. Okay, so my next question that I have is, can you share some best practices on how employers can build a network of partners that offers services that creates a pipeline of talent for second chance citizens?
I'll share some of the best practices of the employers that we work with, and this kind of goes for vocational training as well. Several years ago, we partnered with a HVAC training school in North Texas, and the guys went through an 8-week training, got certification, and had automatic placement at somewhere around $20 to $25 an hour. And when word got out about that school got flooded. And we've had about 50 guys go through, and all of them are doing really well. And so that marketing component or that feedback loop is super important for our employers when they go inside and plug and speak to the guys on the inside and give them a vision of what could happen, of how there's a ladder here that you can climb, and it can look like this down the road, and the guys on the inside can see that, and they see an employer who is willing to step into their world for just a minute. somebody who's willing to give them a chance, who will invest in them and give them an opportunity. The loyalty factor of these employees is off the charts. I know guys in North Texas who were paid to go learn to drive a cement truck, get their CDL. And it typically took about 3 to 4 weeks for them to do that, but they were getting paid a $17 an hour wage to learn to do that. And after they got their certification, their license, and they were driving a concrete truck, then other offers from other companies started coming in, and they would not move because that company gave them their start, gave them their opportunity of a career level job. And so their loyalty to that employer was huge.
And some of our best practices were the fact that we, me, myself, I go out and develop and really relationships with the employees. Like I said, I attended what is called the agency meeting, is a meeting of your general contractors, and that's a meeting that they have once a month in Houston, and that's with all of your builders and contractors under the same roof. So I get to capture everybody's attention almost at the same time. And I let them know, hey, we have a school, it's an 8-week training course. We have people graduating these 5 construction trades. And so that's how I capture a lot of our employers at this meeting that they have once a month. Another practice that we have is the soft skills that we let the employees know some of the things that we do ahead of time. One thing is that we drug test our graduates to let them know, hey, we're not going to send you anybody that can't pass a drug test. You know, why waste your time? You know, that's something that we'll deal with in-house. So we think that that's a practice that also gives the employees some type of sense of ease that, you know, we still are trying to send them this best qualified person for this position. And we also let the employee come in on day one of this, every class that we start up. We have them come in, identify themselves or introduce themselves, I put it like that. Let our participants know what exactly the expectations are. You know, what type of job, you know, they're getting ready to get themselves into. They'll tell them, hey, you're going to be doing construction work, you're going to be working outside in the elements. You know, this is a job, you may be standing up 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. You're going to be working with steel-toe boots on, a hard hat, you know, safety glasses. So we don't try to fool anybody, you know, on what's going on. This is reality. You in this class, you say you want to do construction work, we have the supervisor here that's representing this company telling you exactly what you're getting ready to face. So that lets the participant know ahead of time, is this something they want to get into? Because we don't want to waste anybody's time. We don't want to enroll a person into something and they do not really fully understand what they're getting themselves into. So that's why we let the employee come out and speak to them directly to let them know exactly what they're getting ready to embark in. And so we think that's another good practice, because everybody, after he said what he had to say or she said what she had to say, everybody know what the expectations are and everybody can get on the same page. So we just think that's another way that we try to, because again, I don't like to waste people's time. I know that, you know, we're dealing with a population that hustle is their thing. So we just trying to get them to put the hustling down or give work a chance. You know, our motto is finish what you start. We got people that come to our class, didn't finish anything in a long time. They didn't finish high school, you know, they just didn't finish things. So we preach on finish what you start, and you got to see the look on their face when they get that 8-week certification. They finished something, and that's a building block for them to move forward.
Hone the hustle, like hone the hustle. And yeah, so I think I got really, really enraptured by what you guys were saying, and I forgot your question. What am I supposed to be answering? Because I was so engrossed with what you were saying.
It's so for them to build a network of partners that offer services that creates a pipeline of talent.
Okay, long and complicated. I like.
Yes.
So I think in addition to the wonderful best practices that these guys have mentioned, I think if I were to kind of specifically target employer best practices, there's going to have to be some patience and some learning, and that's okay, right? None of us up here were experts in this when we first started. Not a single one of us, right? Some of us more than others, but we all had to learn too. We all had to figure out exactly what it was that we were doing. So patience and flexibility while you work with the nonprofit partners like us is really helpful, and feedback. And I think that's really important. I think we have to be able to have two-way feedback when we're working together, because there are going to be times that something just isn't working. And we have to be able to wrestle with it. We have to be able to talk about it. One of the things that we do in our program is we actually have something called a weekly care team meeting, which has a partner from every single nonprofit that's represented. So Dallas College, who's doing our training program, Lone Star Justice Alliance, that's doing the case management, Workforce Solutions, that's helping to provide funding, TechStop, who's one of our partners, and our employers. We meet on a weekly basis to talk about every single one of the people going through our program. What's happening? What's going on? What's working? What isn't working? That feedback loop for a really intensive program, if that's something that you're looking for, that feedback loop is really important as a best practice. And then being open to receiving feedback as an employer as well, right? We as service providers, we are open to feedback. We are here for it. We want to know how to make our partnerships with you work. But the other thing that I would say is that that's got to be a two-way street. And there's got to be some flexibility. And one of our values at LSJ is giving grace. So interesting, there's another reason it's called the Grace Conference, right? Giving grace while we figure things out, while we work it out, because every person is unique and different as we're moving through each of these different programs. And then the other best practice that I would say for employers is educate yourself about our legal system. And if you don't want to do that, hire me and I will tell you all of the things. Right? You heard a small sliver of my soapbox about our legal system and how it impacts people, but I'm here to tell you that what you see on paper is not always real. What you see on paper is not always real, and you have to be able to be willing to look beyond that and to educate yourself about what each of those things mean. And when I'm talking about on paper, I really mean about a criminal background, right? The way that we prosecute people here, the way that we do that is we're going to go for the hardest, worst charge that we can. That is what we do. And when I say that, I mean, I'm going to give an example. We're married, Brian and I, and we have been together for years. And I've been abusing Brian for years.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
I know. I'm sorry to put our dirty laundry out like this, right? But let's say 10 years, and Brian has finally had it. He's done. Because what did I do? I went after one of our kids. And he hits me with a pan. That's aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in Texas. And if I have a better lawyer than Brian can get, if I have all of the resources in our relationship, then guess who's winning that case? Me, right? And I think it's really important when we talk about this that as employers, when you look at best practices, help educate yourselves. And if you, I get it. If you don't want to learn the whole legal system, I am here to help with that. We are here to help with that. We've got people with lived experience who are going to tell you what it was like for them. It's going to tell you what led to the crime being committed, and I'm telling you, context matters. It really, really does. And I think that being open to hearing that, being open to working with us, and then truly too, just tell us what you need. You have a litany of people in each of your cities, I promise you, who are dying to work with you. We're dying to work with you. Our whole purpose here is to get people connected to a lifelong career, and we want that to be with you. That's what we want. And we're here to work with you, and we're here to help make that happen, whatever way we need to do that. So, yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit about Alexa's question or comments that she made today. She wanted to be an executive. Mm-hmm. So how does she connect with an employer who wants to hire someone with a background as an executive? Do they go through you? Or how does employers connect to get someone like Alexa?
That's a great question. Do you want to start with that one?
You know, a lot of our guys, because they want to be business owners, and one part of our program I didn't really bring up today is I take executive volunteers into prison about once a month. I mean, super successful businessmen and women. I've had the C-suite of Exxon, Texaco, Deloitte, Goldman Sachs going into prison and playing the role of Mark Cuban or Lori Greiner in Shark Tank and listening to business pitches and providing feedback. And so I'm getting the cool kids from school, the successful people, to go into prison and impact and listen and help change lives and invest in people that are worthy of investment to really address that. And so what happens is our participants get more professional in their communication and how they interact with professionals. They learn how to do that. And so many of our graduates get out and they want to become professional. And so one of the first things that we do is pair them up with a mentor on the outside that will help them think through that, introduce them to the network, and help them think through what a career is going to look like. If you've never been a professional before, if you've never been an executive, then you're only guessing at what people want. And so it takes a professional to groom up a professional. And let me give you a real life example of that. I'm CEO of the Prison Entrepreneurship Program, but I'm also a graduate. I got out of prison in 2014, having done almost 22 years in prison for a life sentence for murder. I killed the man because I was in a desperate, drug-addicted state. I was not just in the car. I was the perpetrator. And my life was a mess. And early on in my incarceration, I realized I am sick and tired of being part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. I just don't know how. I've never had anybody around me that's around me to show me what being an honorable, professional man looks like. That happened in my program. I'm telling you, I was a terrible son. I was a terrible citizen. I never had a job longer than a year prior to prison. I've been on this job for 8 years. I've been CEO for 4, and I get to run around and interact with some of our business leaders in the community of Texas. I've been called to Washington, D.C., to the White House twice. It's because professionals invested in me and showed me what that life looks like. And so it takes a person to show a person what that's going to be like.
Got to see it to believe it. All right, so I'll give you one last question. Tell us what employers have to stop doing. Roadblocks, how to end roadblocks, or what are some of the roadblocks that you see that employers can change?
Don't tell people they can't become executives because they have a criminal background. No, but really, I think that there's a lot that all of us can do, a lot of things that we need to stop doing, which is to stop assuming that we know, to stop assuming that we understand, and to stop making assumptions in general. To start breaking some stereotypes about what someone who has justice involvement or involvement in the legal system, however you'd like to say that, what they look like, how they act, who they are. That's one of the things we all have to stop doing. That's not just for employers, that's for all of us, right? Because that's something that's learned. That is a learned behavior, the way that we assume that people are, how stereotypes are. That's something that we all learned, and so we have to unlearn it. And I think we have to stop feeling scared to take risks, scared to speak up, scared to say something like, I'm an employer and I hire people with criminal backgrounds. Guess what? You're going to reach applause, not censure. That's not what's going to happen. You're going to have applause because there are thousands of people who are looking for you, but they can't find you. So I think one of the things we also have to do too is to stop tiptoeing around the fact that this is what we do. I work at Lone Star Justice Alliance and we hire people with criminal backgrounds. It's really important that we say that because that's how we find you. But if we don't know, we can't find you. And if you're not willing to do that, then I would argue you're potentially not willing to actually hire people with criminal backgrounds. You're not willing to say it out loud. But you're all here because I think you are willing to say it out loud. So the best thing I can tell you is to stop being quiet and start speaking up. Start telling everybody that that's what you do and that you don't have it all figured out, and that's okay because none of us have it all figured out, but that you're here for it and you're here for the journey and you're here for the investment because it's going to reap benefits for you and your company.
citizens. If you're looking for talent, look for talent. Take down the roadblocks, right? And someone said, well, okay, we're looking back 7 years, and they don't. They look back 10 or 15 or whatever that is. And I think also the biases and the stereotypes, what you were talking about earlier, violent felons, about 50 to 55% of the guys that go through our program have some level of violent felony on their record. Here's what I want you to know. They are the most stable people out there. They are much more stable than people who have perpetual drug charges. And it's interesting, I worked in Texas Correctional Industries for about 12 years at a science shop in Huntsville, and I got really close to my plant manager, and I would always, from time to time, I'd say, hey, I got a buddy on the block that wants a job, and he was like, what's his charge? He had a murder case, he goes, tell him I'll take it. Because he realized murder cases were the most stable people in prison. It's counterintuitive, isn't it? You know what? They've made a huge mistake. They know the consequences of it. They know they can't make that again. It's changed their life dramatically. So every class that goes through PP, we do mock interviews, and we bring in employers and hiring managers and let our guys get practice at the interviewing process. And all the guys get so apprehensive. They're like, I've got a murder case, or I've got a case that's hard to explain. How do I explain that, Brian? You're just like me. Tell me how to do that. And I'm like, that is so easy. You look them dead in the eye and say, I did that. But because I did that, you are getting a such better version of me. I have turned my life around. Here's what I've done. Here's how I've grown. Here's how you're going to benefit from the horrible decision that I made years ago. And they go to quickly scribble those down because they want to remember how to sell it. But it's true. The guys with big crimes have turned their lives around. They want to provide. They want to contribute to society. They want people to give them a chance. They want to show you that they can really produce and make your company better. One other thing I wanted to bring up before I toss this over to Prentice is technology. The people coming out of prison have not had technology available to them for years or decades. If you only have online applications, that is a struggle for them. They are going to get lost in the sea of that. And as soon as they sign up for that, their email, their inbox is going to get bombarded by things that they are not skilled enough to weed through. And so if you only have an online platform, guess what? You're not going to get very many. We've got to get back to the place where it's people to people, where you want to look and hire somebody for their skill set of what they can add, the value they can add to your company, where it's not just something on a sheet of paper or an electronic field.
That's where the training comes in that Rachel was talking about, training employers on being more inclusive and understanding what is needed when you're hiring a second chance individual. Okay, Prentice, go ahead.
I piggyback on something that they said, which is sticking a 7-year, the 10 or 15-year requirement on a person as far as they hide behind that as far as one of their hiring practices. Another thing I would wish they would stop doing is that since this person do have a background, I want to hire them, but I want to hire them to do the job nobody else will do. You know, in other words, we're going to start you at the bottom of the bottom just because you have a background. You should be just happy to be, you know, getting a job or working for this company. I want them to stop having that mindset that, you know, this person, you know, they did some time or have a background, so we automatically, in one instances, we'll hire, but in another instances, we'll give them the lowest job on the totem pole, mostly every time. And that's not right. You know, some of these people have been to college. You know, some of these people have had jobs in good industries, and they've made a mistake, and they paid their price. And so society, it's not only the employees, like the woman said, society as a whole needs to change its mindset. You can do 20 years and never pay your debt to society. You still can't stay where you want to stay. You still can't work where you want to work. You still can't do the type of work you want to work. Because as a whole, we stick together on, you know, this criminal, once a criminal, always a criminal. That's the mindset that we stay on. And if we give you a place to stay, it's because nobody else wants to stay there. If we give you a job, because nobody else wants it. So it's almost like we're gonna throw you some crumbs and you ought to just be happy to take it. You know, and that's not right. And that's what I try to advocate for is, you know, I know some real talented people that made some mistakes. I was in the car with them, you know, but that don't mean they should be punished the rest of their life, especially if the law say you go serve a time. What was that all about? You know, I don't get to start over. I do 10 years and my plate is no cleaner than it was before I did the 10 years. So that's what I don't like is our mindset as a society. Not everybody, but enough people in power to keep it going. And so that's what we need to change. Come on.
Especially when the law finds specific neighborhoods and finds specific places to go where people get caught more frequently. That's just, we're just gonna name it, I'm gonna name it, right? And I think this is another thing for us to look at, and this is not an employer-specific thing. I think just one more thing for us to look at too are arbitrary requirements around occupational licensing that are directly related to criminal backgrounds. Do you guys know that you can't get a barber's license in Texas if you have a criminal background? But that's it, a barber's license. Because if you have a criminal background in Texas, these are rules that have been in existence for decades that have not been looked at, have not been picked up and reviewed. And one of my lifetime career achievements is going to be that I will get the licensing changed for RNs and LVNs. We are going to get people with criminal backgrounds in the hospitals into education, into the fields that they want, into the fields that are their passion, because our licensing requirements are arbitrarily restrictive.
Sounds like we have a lot of work to do. Commissioner Alvarez, that means we need more GRACE conferences. So, thank you for this. So we are winding down our time today. I wanted to open it up to see if anybody had any questions for our nonprofit partners.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Piggyback with them. Ryan, how much time did you do?
21 years, 8 months, and 1 day.
How much did you make?
How much did I make?
Yeah, working, because you had a job in prison.
Yeah, nothing. I got good time that wasn't no damn good.
You had 21 years and didn't make a thing. You give them a chance to work 40 hours. I promise you that 40 hours is going to be worth it. He did 21 years and didn't make nothing and worked his butt off. Worked his butt off, I will tell you that.
Great job. Anybody else? Anybody else? Any other questions? All righty. I want to
Are
thank
you guys scared?
I think it's just the end of the day. I know, it's been a long day, right?
I had to beg Prentice even to come up here and be on the panel. He was sleepy after he ate.
That was the meal. That was the meal. The drive and the meal. That was a combination of both.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
First of all, my name is Guillermo Bermudez from South Texas, Laredo, Texas. Commissioner Alvarez, thank you so much for this awesome conference. And like she said, we definitely do need many more. This is the first of many. But I wanted to refer back to Ms. Rachel and Mr. Brian, how in that scenario that you painted, that you were the abusive one, you were the violent one, and you were the one that was caught because you just got fed up. And so that is the thing that employers look at, where we will not hire you because you have a violent background. So in this case, you are the one, Ms. Rachel, you're the one that will probably get hired because you don't have that record, but yet you're the violent one, right? So that is what's going on, and that we see a lot of with employers. We've already mentioned it, and it was more of a question, but we've already talked about it. So that is, my question now is, how do we break those barriers that employers have already said, you know, their policy, it's a policy, it's a company policy that we can't hire you based on your background because it's policy. So we definitely do need to start somewhere. So where would we start?
Education. educating employers, having more discussions about it, showing examples of how we need to look at backgrounds a little bit more closely. That's just my 2 cents. Okay, I'll let the experts tell you.
First thing I would say, and having also had to be, I was at an employer for a long time, and that we talked about a lot about being second chance, but when it really came down to it, like we were only kinda second chance. And I think the first thing and the easiest thing to do is to ask why. Why is that our requirement? Because I guarantee you most people can't tell you why. It's just 'cause. Cool, well, when was the last time you accepted just 'cause for a reason, right? Or it's always been that way. Why? Why has it always been that way? And so I think the first thing is to be willing to be an advocate to challenge that inside of your own agency and to ask the question why. It doesn't even have to be a big question, it's just curiosity, right? Why is it? I will tell you that oftentimes what they're going to default to is the TDLR, that it's a licensing requirement depending on what you do. But if there's not a licensing background requirement, then ask again. Why? Why do we have that? Oh, we're concerned about violence in the workplace. Okay, well let's talk about how we do other things to prevent that and the fact that most violence doesn't happen in the workplace, it happens outside. But I think asking why, being curious, and offering different options, right? And I think also offering education too. Like I said, we're here as a resource, but there are plenty of other agencies like Lone Star Justice Alliance across the board who are willing to provide that education. The other thing I would offer to you is really check and research how you're running your background checks. What agency are you using? What is the disposition that shows? And how much are you paying for those background checks, right? Often, and as a person who used to work with an employer who did this, we'll do just the $2 one, just give me whatever that one is, right? But that doesn't give you all the information and often presents the worst picture first and not what the actuality is. So check and see how you're running your background checks too and if there are options to run it differently.
One thing that just popped in my mind too is having a better idea on the hiring practices. And so, for example, if somebody had an assault case or a violent case, dive into that, run into that bullet, and address that because there should be a dramatic transformation in it, and that should be demonstratable by that potential hire. It's like, hey, you've had anger issues in the past. Tell me how I know you're not going to have that. There should be an adequate response for that. If you've had a drug case in the past, what's your recovery look like? There should be a dramatic turn. There should be a night and day. So dive into that human to human and see what those answers are, because if there are those answers, then give that person a shot. If they don't have those answers, that's definitely a red flag.
And another start, the way to look at it is everybody in here works for somebody. So, well, mostly I would think everybody here works for somebody. Everybody here can start that process by asking the questions about their own company hiring practices and dealing with people with backgrounds. And so, it started off individually and watch it and see how that grow. I mean, we can go back and maybe talk to our HR person and say, what are the requirements for hiring an individual with a background, and just see what the requirements are. And that's one way, but a lot of it is still that it's education, like they say, education, advocacy, and stuff like that, to make sure that we do keep that topic out in front for the next wave of people that's gonna either get out of incarceration or need to go to work after they've been released from prison or jail. So we're gonna always have a new group of people that's gonna face this. But we need to again educate and advocate for ways to make it to where people can get a fair chance at getting jobs. So that's just something that's an ongoing thing.
I think one other thing that I would add to that too, I'm a big fan of a pilot program, right? I'm a big fan of that with us. I have started a number of pilot programs, and pilot seems to be a safe word where people are concerned, right? Like I have a lot of concerns about us doing this. Great, let's run a pilot program. We're gonna do it in small amounts. We're gonna try it out. We're gonna test it out. But part of Because I think that once you do that, and you're gonna have stumbles because all pilot programs do, and it's not gonna be perfect, but you're gonna have good results too. You're gonna find that gold that happens, and then what you have is a success story to build on. And that's how you build a movement inside of your employer.
Thank you. Any last words before we conclude?
Yeah, just a couple very quickly. Number one, our second chance citizens are not second class citizens. They have hopes and dreams and creativity and passions and purpose, and it's amazing what they can do when people lean in and invest in them and give them an opportunity and have that patience that you were talking about and give them the upbringing that they probably didn't get in their childhood and have that patience. It is amazing how they will produce for you. Our program, I talk about this all the time, we are finding treasures in jars of clay. In Jesus' time, jars of clay were vessels of burden. You were carrying that for miles to go get water, and you drop them and they break, and there's just piles of rubble of these broken jars of clay. And imagine, nobody's going to hide their treasures there, but there is untold treasures in broken jars of clay that you can pull out if you take a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, a little bit of understanding of what's going to be needed for a little bit of extra training, a little bit of extra insulation. You can tap into a labor pool that is huge and valuable and will provide an incredible value to your company.
I want to thank Ms. Reba Bacon for asking me to come on this panel. And the SSF program for allowing us to reach out and be able to help people in the Houston area. The people, the staff of the SSF program, and the people that run it, I'd like to thank y'all for giving us a chance to help people get their lives together. And the Texas Workforce Commission, for giving us the Grace Cup.
I'm just going to end it with one more thank you. Thank you to every single one of you guys who is still here, who hung out to hear us talk. Super appreciate it. Really appreciate you guys. And if I could just say, thank you for doing this, TWC. Thank you for acknowledging that this is an area we have to grow. And thank you for inviting us and allowing us to be transparent and allowing us to be honest and allowing us to really talk about and wrestle with this topic because it's big and it's complicated sometimes, but it's worth it. It is absolutely worth it. Hiring our people is worth it to every single one of you. Thank you for sticking here. Thank you for listening to us, and we're all here if you need anything.
My sentiments, exactly. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.